Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rondi, Lambeth, and today I want to talk about becoming free. If you are new to the show, I highly recommend that you go back and you listen to my very first episode of the School of Wealth so you can kind of understand my background, where I grew up, how I grew up, and really it will just help you understand today's show. So if you're listening for the very first time or you're watching this video online and you have not listened to my very first podcast episode of the School of Wealth, hit pause, go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever, and listen to the very first episode of School of Wealth so you can kind of understand what I'm getting ready to get into today, because it's really deep. And I'm going to get really raw with you today, and I'm going to get really vulnerable with you. So, there's that. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I was married and that I went through a divorce in June 2019, and we're amicable. We still chat via text and email almost every day. I wasn't this nasty War of the Roses kind of divorce, but with that being said, it was still a divorce. And I kind of look at divorce like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You put peanut butter on one side, you put jelly on the other, you get married, you smash it together. You can't expect to take that peanut butter and jelly sandwich apart without getting messy, right? But you can do your best. You don't have to destroy that peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? You just separate it. And so with that, it kind of put me on a path of discovery. I've spent the last 6 months really just focusing on me, where I wanted to go in life, what I wanted to do in life. I'm very fortunate and very blessed. I have an amazing company, amazing team that allows me that freedom to really work on me. And so I've done a lot of work on me. And it started with a lot of books. And I like listening to Audible. So if you don't have an Audible account, I highly recommend you get an Audible account. I have an Audible account through my company. I let all my employees get books. If you're an employer, I highly recommend you get an Audible account and we'll share it with your employees. Let them buy books. My rule is you can buy anything you want as long as it's a self-improvement book. And so there's 5 books that I've read and listened to over the last 6 months that really made an impact. Now there's lots of other books. I completed the 75 Hard Challenge twice in the last 6 months. If you haven't done that yet, or you don't know what I'm talking about, and you're listening to the podcast, go to the show notes. If you're watching this online, we'll put a link as well to 75 Hard episode with my friend Andy Frisella. But I did 75 Hard, which requires 10 pages of reading every day. So I read dozens of books over the last 6 months, but these 5 were the most impactful. The Way of the Superior Man, I just listened to that one the end of October. I wish I'd have listened to that when I was a teenager. It's so impactful for me to listen to. I was literally crying on the airplane on the way from Las Vegas to Sarasota. Here I am, 6'3", 225 pounds. I don't look that soft and gentle, right? And I'm sitting up in first class, bawling my eyes out, listening to it, because I realized how many mistakes I made in life, and I really only had 3 regrets my entire life. There's things I wish I could change, but they are who I am. That's who makes me me, right? So I don't regret those things. But there were 3 things that I did that I regretted, and every single one of them had to do with a woman. And I learned through The Superior Man that not to let women impact your purpose. Don't let them get in the way of your purpose. The next book was The 4 Agreements. I just finished this one a week ago. And it's the 4 agreements on life. Be impeccable with your word. don't take anything for granted. Don't make any assumptions. Don't take anything personal, and then do your best. And then the next book after Four Agreements was The 5 Levels of Attachment, which I did something yesterday and I did something today that I'm going to share with you to break that attachment, the attachment that I had because of my past. And then I listened to another book in June called The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi. And then Many Lives, Many Masters. I just finished that one yesterday. So those are the 5 books. They're in the show notes. They'll also be in the notes if you're watching online. So The Way of the Superior Man, The 4 Agreements, The 5 Levels of Attachment, The Rational Male, and then Many Lives, Many Masters. If you listen to the show before, or if you follow me online, or if you listen to my other radio show called Your Credit Matters, I think under iTunes it's called Credit Repair Radio. It's where I did a daily radio show 6 days a week for 7 years in a row. So I have over 2,000 episodes, and it's primarily about credit. The School of Wealth is completely different. It is about becoming wealthy as an individual. A big bank account, lots of assets, a wealthy body, a wealthy mind, right? And so that's the School of Wealth, is to become wealthy overall. Because what good is it to have all the money in the world if you die from eating too much stress, heart attack, whatever, cancer? So one of the things in the 5 levels of attachment was an exercise to physically break the attachment that you have with someone who abused you, someone who hurt you, whether it's physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, whatever that is. And I remember laying in my bed in Las Vegas, and it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm listening to this book, and I went through the exercise. I visualized the person that I wanted to break this attachment with, because he's now dead. He died a month ago. And I wanted to break that attachment with him. And so I went through the exercise as I laid in bed. And I told him that I hated him. I hated him for beating me. I hated him for torturing me. I hated him for abusing my mother. I hated him for abusing my siblings. I hated him for abusing animals and making me watch. I hated him. But I also forgive him. I forgave him for what he did to me. I forgave him for what he did to my family. And I let it go. I never got to say that to his face. If he was alive today, I would be over there right now doing it, but he's not. And I thought that was enough. I thought breaking that attachment would be enough in my life. And I realized there were some other people in my life that I had hatred towards. And I never thought I was someone to hate someone. In fact, when my kids were growing up, they weren't allowed to say hate, because hate means that you want to kill them. It gives you a murderous heart. It turns your heart cold and black. And I refused to think that I hated anyone. But I did. I didn't care if they lived. I didn't care if they died. Didn't matter to me. Did not care whatsoever if they got freaking ran over by a truck and died a miserable, slow death. And so I worked up the courage, and yesterday I drove to my dad's house in Caldwell, Idaho, in Middleton, Idaho, outside of Boise. And I sat down with him, and I told him that I hated him. I hated my dad for what he did to me as a kid, for not being there. See, my dad never physically abused me. He never hurt me, not physically. Hurt me emotionally because he was never there. He abandoned me as a kid. He beat my mom. He raped my mom in front of me and my brothers. And he beat her unconscious over and over and over again. He terrorized us. And I was afraid of him, but he never physically hit me. He physically abused my siblings. He sexually abused my siblings. And I told him that I hated him for it. And then I told him that I forgave him. I told him that I was sorry that I hated him. And I told him that I forgave him for what he did to me and what he did to my siblings. And then I told in front of him that I forgave myself for allowing that hatred to be inside me. And then we did something that I've never done before. I'm 48 years old. I hugged my dad for the first time in my life. For the first time in my life, I felt my dad's arms around me, hugging me. And I left there not with a lot of emotion. I pushed it down. That's what us men do. That's what people do. I went into fireman mode and I pushed it down. And I knew I was going to bring it up later because I've learned something through these books that you gotta focus on the pain. You gotta focus on the emotions. Figure out where it's coming from. Don't push it down. Focus on it so you can deal with it and move on and become free. So about 2 hours after that, it hit me. It hit me that I had hugged my dad for the first time in my entire life that I remember. He was out of my life by the time I was 5, 6 years old. I don't remember any hugging when I was younger than that. I remember him beating my mom and other things, but I don't remember any hugs from him. So I hugged him, and it hit me about 2 hours after that, and it was pretty powerful. I sat there in bed, just crying, and it's not a crying of pain, but like a little bit of pain, but not sadness, but like crying and letting it go. It was gone. I was free. I was free of that hate that I had towards him. So today, I did that yesterday, and I realized that I had a lot of hatred for my mother too. And I knew that one was going to be harder than with my dad. Because my mom and I kind of have a relationship. I say kind of because of my hatred towards her, because of what she did. And so about 2 hours ago, I went to her house, sat her down, and I said, Mom, I hate you. I've hated you since I was a little boy. I hate you for allowing Paul, which is my stepdad, the one that used to beat me and torture me and beat animals and kill them in front of us. Things that I've never shared with anybody. Horrible, horrible things that he would do. I hate you, Mom, for allowing that to happen. I hate you for allowing you to let Paul beat Jeremy. I hate you for allowing Paul to beat Daniel and Josh and Zeke and Abby. And I hate you, Mom, for abandoning me when I was 14 years old and making me leave. See, at 14 years old, I left home. My mom gave me $20 in food stamps and a bag of apples and set my brother and I We were up in Wenatchee, Washington, up next to Canada, picking apples. And my brother and I had made an agreement that the next time that Paul would start beating one of us, the other one that was not being beat would sneak up behind him and hit him in the back of the head with something, and we would not stop until he was dead. And so Jeremy and I made this pact that we were going to kill Paul, and it would be self-defense because he was beating one of us. And Paul figured this out. He started beating up on Jeremy, and I came after him, and he stopped me. And so he gave my mom a choice. You pick your boys or you pick me. And my mom picked him and sent us away. And then I had a lot of abandonment from other women. I found that every single woman in my life has always abandoned me at some point. And because of that, I do not, I'm working on it, that I didn't trust women. I always was waiting for them to leave, to abandon me, to find somebody better, to pick somebody over me. And so I told her that. I told her I hated her for all of those things that she did. And then I told her that I forgave her. Mom, I forgive you for doing that. I forgive you for allowing it. I forgive you for abandoning me. I forgive you for choosing someone else over me. And I understand that you did the best that you could as a single mother with 4 kids in your 20s with no education and no support system by your family. You did what you knew how to do. I mean, she didn't know any better, right? And I told her that I loved her, and I forgave her, and I loved her, and I have no hatred towards her anymore. I only have love for her, feelings of love, and when I see her now, I just see love. And then I left. And I just felt it was important for me to share that with you today because I'm free. I'm free. I'm free of those attachments, and I want you to become free. And I know, like I said, I'm being very vulnerable with you, and I'm very emotional with you, but I wanted you to know that you can become free as well. You can break those attachments to the people that hurt you in your life, and you can move on. And you can feel the feeling that I'm feeling right now. I'm like floating with joy and love right now, and it's just like overwhelming feeling. So I think how this ties in with the School of Wealth is if you're not free, full of love and joy, what good is all the money in the world? What good is wealth? What good is a couple commas in your bank account, right? But if you want true wealth, not the dollars, but true wealth, you got to break the attachments with people that have hurt you in your life. Maybe you're the one that hurt people. Maybe you need to break free and apologize to the people that you hurt. Whatever it is, only you know. But again, I'll recommend these books, The Way of the Superior Man, The 4 Agreements, 5 Levels of Attachment, The Rational Male, Many Lives, Many Masters. And these authors, the Way of the Superior Man, The Rational Male, those are primarily for men. They do have books. These authors have books for women as well. The 4 Agreements, the 5 Levels, Attachments, and Many Lives, Many Masters is not a male or female book. It's a human book. So I hope you can become free. I hope you can feel what I'm feeling right now. The joy and the love that I feel. I want that for you. And that's why I'm being vulnerable with you. Is I want you to be free.